We never had a candidate that really challenged them like Laura's challenging them. And even if they knew that there were mistakes going on, they were willing to swallow that up in the vast system of ours. Dana DeBois has tried her best. However, it's not good enough. When we sat there and argue with her, had experts come in and tell them that the system didn't work. When you got it challenged to the T, the way it's being challenged now, it's not going to produce the end results that we want, and that is our elections to be fair and right. So today we have this problem, and the only reason we're here now today is because of Laura. If she was not doing this, there was nobody stepping up and hitting a home run for the voters.
It costs too much. Fidel, it costs too much to do it. No one else has ever ran had this kind of money to be able to do this kind of thing. Look how much she's had to spend to do this.
And we need to help,
Sarah Eckert promised
get it
us
done.
when she got
The,
elected.
the league passed a resolution for paper ballots.
Do it.
Vote Rescue was instrumental in helping me get that resolution started and passing it through national. That we need to go back to paper ballots. You say, oh, that's a bunch of bull. Not today. But if you look at the people who can do it on precinct by the people, we can do it. We can do it. There's no such thing as, there's 4 million people in Houston, living in Houston. 90% of them don't vote. Come on.
Yeah.
30% of them here are not voting. So what is the solution for us? Is go back to paper ballots and make our elections fair, and we would have a different result.
Oh yeah, in direct response to that, in 2008 I built a website called votebankaccount.com because I was for Ron Paul and I didn't feel that his votes were getting counted, right? So I'm a software engineer and I worked at McAfee, virus protection, everything. So, you know, I know computers pretty down in Cisco. Computers are so traceable. There's no way to fool a computer practically. Deep down, nobody even knows they're being traced because basically the entire architecture is based on if it can't find between point A and B, the whole system doesn't work. So you can't really break the system without completely breaking it. So the thing is votebankaccount.com, what it did, one of the things it did is it put all the recount information right up on the web and sent emails to everybody who voted, okay, encrypted emails to the people who voted and to Travis County email address. You know, it was a, just one set up. It wasn't the real one. But it would basically have a list of, a copy of all the votes in encrypted format, with people's email addresses. So in 2008, it was kind of like ahead of its time. And I actually met Vicky Carr and some people over at Read Me Books. And I saw the reaction to it. And I said, ahead of your time. But it's coming to the point now where people are starting to actually see voting on, on different websites and stuff, and how you can actually trace those, and that your premise and your argument is that voter fraud did not exist with paper ballots. Well, it did, and so going back to them,
You didn't say that.
you know what I mean? We have to move ahead.
I want you to hear that we are not saying.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I want to be real clear. We have not said fraud. What we're saying is there are checks and balances in the current system that were not there, that were designed to be there, that were avoided because of convenience or whatever. So we just think there's a lot of mistakes that happen. This is what I'm saying as a person.
But even one more thing is because we got really close that night because I'm a sentimental fool, right? So I practically saved everything. I'm not on a hoarder show yet, but at any rate, so I had in my pocket these very pants and they have been washed. But at any rate, yeah, so Laura was sitting there going, and, you know, about, did anyone have their receipt? So I pulled it out of my pocket, and all it was a little bitty receipt they give you with the number on it, the phone number. And she was so happy because she knew she goes, this is all I need to trace it. Just sign your name on it, put your email address on there, and like that in and of itself is almost the same system, but it doesn't have an encrypted email that could actually back trace on the whole system. But that will come in about probably 5 years, maybe sooner, with someone like Laura heading the charge. Because I personally, I gave up. And after that meeting, I go, I can't deal. But luckily, you're a strong enough person to be able to deal with that kind of adversaries.
What's the current status of the lawsuit?
Current status is we filed a petition, a judge has been assigned, and disappointingly about all of this is we had to file against Greg Cassar. Greg did nothing wrong in the accounting of loans, but state law said we have to sue the company. So really, and I think they made a nice, there was a comment that his attorney made, and I think Mike reported this, that, you know, they'll be looking to the county for a lot of processes and questions to be answered through them. So,
What's the timing?
we don't know. It may be a month before the next hearing, 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know.
I just want to make an observation, and I've heard a couple people say it, that Dana's doing a good job. I confronted Dana in 2008 at Houston Tillotson when she presented the same thing then, talking about the fact that we were talking about paper ballots then, or at least a paper trail. And she said, we're working on it, we should have it out. I confronted her again 2 years ago. Said the same thing, we might have it out by 2016. We live in America, and every time we talk about we want to do something, we do it. But when we want to talk about doing something, we can't seem to get it done. So at some point in time, we've got to stop the conversation about she's doing a good job and realize what we're doing is being put in the cycle, which keeps you in spin all the time, and there's nothing being done. She's now saying it's not going to be until after the 2016. We can't find a computer that can kick out a piece of paper to do a paper trail with as much money as we spend on elections? Really? Come on, guys. At some point in time, we've got to stop lying to ourselves and stop lying about other people and start talking about what's really going on here. This is a spin cycle that's keeping us right where you are right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the good part of this, I'm an optimist, I'm a pragmatist, but also an optimist, that this is going to help move this along. Because this is a problem, we don't have valid images, we're not adhering to state law, no zero tapes, no results tapes. What are we doing? These checks and balances are not there. We can't tell who won the election right now because we don't have anything to actually count, to audit. So that is a problem. And so I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to do this and have so many people supporting us, and just thank you.
Let's get back to the sheet itself, okay? You say it does not make an image, but it's supposed to, but it does not make an image of the balance sheet?
According to Dana, it does not have it.
Dana obviously doesn't know that's what she's talking about, okay? So she shouldn't have that job, in my opinion, but have you contacted the manufacturer to find out what it does?
So this is part of our discovery in the lawsuit is compel the judge to compel the county to print the images.
So, I mean,
And however they have to do that. I'm not micromanaging how they do
so I'm
it.
just wondering if the manufacturer can tell you if it's supposed to
It's a
do
great
that.
question. We don't know until we get into it with the judge. When the judge allows that.
Manufacturer.
Well, that's not admissible.
No, but
Me on the
at least
phone.
you'll know.
I
At
hear
least
you.
you'll
I
know
hear
if
you.
it doesn't.
So we're
it's
waiting.
supposed to do.
We don't
Yeah.
know. And
You mentioned the disconnect between the results on the mail-in ballots and the electronic ones. How in a typical election, how closely do those align, or is that kind of a normal thing?
it's a great question. I don't know that anybody has ever gotten to the number of the mail-in ballot number because you have to do that in a recount. You can't, that is not a number that's reported. David, skip back. back to the almost third slide, I'm sorry, the results slide. Back here, there, okay. So this is what's reported to us for the last 11 years with Travis County. You get early voting, you get election day. The ballot by mails are typically incorporated in the early voting numbers, but they're never broken out. This is the first time that I know of that the ballot by mails has actually been broken out.
How do you know that there's only, what, 240 plus 240 of them?
Go to the ballot.
But I mean, who's to say that they didn't throw out some of them?
Well, that's part of what the ballot board does. The ballot board can reject mail-in ballots. That's one of the discovery items we've asked for. What ballots were rejected? Were there provisionals that were rejected? Why were they rejected? Were there ballot by mails that were rejected? Who submitted the ballot by mails? Total the names, and so we can reconcile that. So that's a good question. We don't know.
But how, remember those stories, I don't know if you know, what is it, blackboxvoting.com or something like that? But they've done a lot of it. Are you familiar with them, Vicki?
Be on the board at Black Box Voting.
Yeah, so they've done it, they've followed vans down the street and found them like dumping ballots out
I
of
don't want to go
boxes.
there. I want to repeat this. We have not said fraud. Does everybody get that? Okay, I don't want to go down that path because that's not what we're about. We're about what happened, why the numbers don't match up. There were checks and balances that did not get followed, and so your safety nets aren't there.
Yes, I understand you don't want to talk about fraud, but the results are very certain. And technology is available today to do a much better job. There's no bank in this country, in this world that could exist having accounting this slow.
I don't disagree.
Yes,
But
that's why I
because-
called the website votebankaccount.com, because if it were a bank account, it would have to basically
All has to add up.
balance.
Exactly.
So again, that's why we even started the recount, because the numbers didn't add up. We just want to get to the bummer this one.
Are there other instances where the election results and the rerun results were as consistent?
No, that's for 11 years.
But on different races, not for the same race?
Let's go back to that slide. Let me show you. It's, let me show you. Keep going. It's the graph.
So the,
One more. This one. So this is what you're asking for. These are 11 years back when there has been a general election and someone had a runoff, because that's what we were. And so this is a comparison of all of those. Now what we don't have are prior to 2000, I think prior to 96 is not even on the Travis County website. I'd be curious to see how it's possible. But it's different because those weren't electronic voting machines. We tried to do apples to apples to make it comparison. This is 11 years worth of data.
and so those are all the candidates that were in.
That lost.
Could the same argument be used to look at past ballot initiatives, will go all the way back to voting?
But you don't ever run all of them. In this case, you've got you've got a general and you've got a runoff. You've got something to compare to. That's why we did it. So Michael, do you have any questions?
Oh, you haven't said anything that I haven't heard before, so.
You haven't seen the ballot by mail stuff yet.
No, you showed me that.
Did I show that?
Yeah, I mean, you're just one, maybe. Your attention to the mathematical minutiae is compulsive, but the one number you don't like to look at is that you lost by 30 points. So, I mean, you could say this over and over again, that this is an anomaly or that there are abnormalities, but the truth of the matter is you lost by 30 points, and that was confirmed in a recount. You can, and you're not just costing yourself money, of course, you're costing everybody involved in this, including the taxpayers, a lot of money. How is it that in this election that was not remotely close, you think is some kind of arithmetical explanation for your loss?
Because the results on election night are not consistent with what we got from our electioneers, from our polling, from the voters. So that was the first step my board said, something doesn't make sense. When we go back, and we don't have the verifiable votes to prove that I lost the 30%. I'm not there yet.
And as far as ballot images go, you were told by the Secretary of State's office that under the current technology that is available, cast vote records are in fact the legal equivalent of ballot images. But you keep on insisting that there is some kind of magical ballot image, PDF or JPEG, which is produced by the exact same computer, that somehow would be superior to the cast vote records that you've been told repeatedly by the Secretary of State's office is the legal equivalent of a ballot image.
Right, and so that's where we have a disagreement with the Secretary of State, and that's where the judge comes in. So when the law says an original ballot rather than a duplicate shall be counted in a recount, that's where the Secretary of State has to come in and explain how is a cast vote record like that, not a duplicate.
Well, I'm curious to see what the judge says,
Me too.
but the same,
Me
the
too.
fact that the computer spits out something that looked more like a ballot, it's still coming from the exact same database. So, looking more like a ballot, I mean, basically your argument is there should be no electronic voting, which I understand,
I'm not
and
saying
people
that.
have made
I've
that
not
argument.
said that.
Well,
I've
people
not
have made that argument here.
Yes,
No,
I'm not
no,
saying
And
that.
you're
I'm
not
a
making,
computer
I'm not speaking
No, but
about you.
you-
Wait a minute, I'm talking to Laura right now,
But
please.
do you know about databases? And what you're saying is not true. I can modify a database and not modify images. You understand? A database can be modified in a second, but an image cannot.
My
That is the
art
difference.
director modifies images every single day.
You can show that an image has been modified. I worked at McAfee. I viruses. I know viruses, Cisco.
But I think your
But-
It's all
point is
traceable.
taken,
But-
Michael. Your point is well taken. And I think the judge, that's gonna be really the judge's responsibility is to look at that and figure that out. But good question.
You said that the results you got from your election monitors and polls was different. That's not scientific, so that's, I found that point unconvincing, but who did your polling, and would you be willing to share those results with us?
No. So no. Yeah, that was our campaign strategy and stuff. And so the bottom line is the results that we saw election night were not consistent with what was being expected, what was being reported back from election.
Who did your polling?
We did.
So are you saying on the tape that they post on the door every few hours was different than the results? Or are you talking about somebody, because like what I would do is I have a kid or whomever go and write down, hey, at 9 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, 3, whatever those times are. And then I look at, based on what I thought the turnout was gonna be for that day, what we need to do in that particular precinct. So were those numbers different than who actually voted? Like, did those numbers not track with, okay, they said this number of people voted, they tallied it up, but there was really a different number of people that voted at the end of the day?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Remember we had county-wide locations, so you have to go look at the name and the ballot style that they have, and that's not always.
But it shows to match up, like, for the sign-in sheets.
But, yeah,
Doesn't
but
matter
we
if
can't get
it-
to sign-in sheets. That's gotta go through the discovery process. Yeah, it's a good question because we don't have, we can't get to that. Yeah, that's what we want.
While everyone's still asking questions, I wanted to just pass this around if you would like to help more with the expenses of what's going on here. And appreciate those that have already put something in here. I'm going to pass this around while the room is still full. If people write a check that we made out to.
For the campaign. And let me clarify the donation stuff. We have campaign debt from the campaign that we ran. And so the lawsuit we're incurring continues to incur debt. So anything you can do to help us retire our campaign debt, you have to be very specific how I ask this. So I would just love any type of help that you can provide that would help us. I can get it. Yeah, if you cash, give me a note. that. David,
I'd just like to make some comments because I'm a little disturbed by some of the things that have been said here, and I'm gratified by some of the other things that have been said. First of all, when there's an anomaly like this for the mail-in votes, and it's 50-50 on the mail-in, and it's not that, it's not even close to that on the vendor count, I want an explanation for that, especially when there's the same name on more than one mail-in ballot. So that's problematic. The other thing is, I have certain rights under state law as a poll watcher. I was assigned as a poll watcher by Laura Pressley. I went to the recount, and my rights were denied at that recount. By who? By the county clerk. Under state law, and it is as clear as day. If you read it, it says, I am allowed to see any votes and images printed off of the original data as anyone else. I get to watch that. I was not allowed to watch that, and my reading of state law is I get to see the data that was collected during the voting process. And I happen to know for a fact that when you're using e-slate machines, because I know election judges right here in Austin, they have to fill out a lot of paperwork, from the zero tapes to the voting logs, etc., and then they have to go to a central location and submit those. We didn't get to see any of that stuff.
So what did they do? Who said you couldn't see it?
Oh, and the Secretary of State. I was shocked by what the representative from the Secretary of State was saying. And I said to myself, well, either they're trying to cover up something or no one has ever tested this statute.
Yeah, and they're totally miffed that somebody's got the audacity to actually say something about it. You know, that's not an isolated incident in several, in many situations that I've encountered, especially here recently. So a lot of this has to do with uncontested judge races in this town. If you look at how many judgeships or uncontested races, it will make you sick.
Amen.
Yeah, I would think I got a question. I would think during the runoff election, the laws would be, or the rules would be followed even more closely.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is, I've talked to several election experts in Austin, and they've said, you know, we've always been concerned about, are there enough names versus the number of ballots. But let's say, think about November. Most people voted for the governor's race and didn't even go down the ballot. And so you had typically more names than ballots. That typically is what happens. But in this runoff for city council, people showed up on purpose. They voted for mayor and they voted for their district. And so there were not extra names this time. So you're exactly right. This was a really good test and people showed up with a purpose.
So I just want to say, I think that it's so admirable to stand up for the validity of our election. I completely disagree with the insinuations of the fellow in black back here trying to make you feel like you're just a sore loser and sour grapes. This is way bigger than just your win over your election. This is about our election, the validity of our election. And we needed a candidate who was willing to stand up and question the status quo. So I do not agree with the insinuation that you should just not waste anyone's time, sit down and be quiet, and don't bother the status quo. This is what we need to be doing. And what I would like to see is some fair and balanced reporting on you. About you that isn't laced with condescension and negative comments and all kinds of things trying to marginalize you. That would be wonderful. That would be a big thing. Wouldn't that be strange? You're dreaming, Stephen.
Okay, I know that Vote Rescue has been working very hard for years and years to try to get us fair voting machines, fair elections. We helped elect Sarah Eckert way back in, I believe, 2004 or 2004 to try to, in other words, get a fair election and fair, good working machines with the paper trail. We had to keep having hearings. That never did happen. Okay, we just had a movie come out about voting rights. It's the name of the movie is Selma. Those people worked very, very hard to get voting rights put in. This is the 40th anniversary of that, and I think it's about time we have some good voting machines that work for us, and a good voting system, not just the machines. The whole system has to work. And we know there's a lot of problems with it. So thank you for working on this.
It's my understanding that if somebody has sent out a mail-in ballot, but they bring it back to the voting polling place, then they can vote. You know what happens with those ballots that they return without filling it out? They want to vote on site, but they bring it back their ballot.
That's why I was asking you about the ballot board, because they keep all of it and they reconcile. For example, if a ballot request goes out, somebody returns it, or the ballot request isn't filled out correctly, there can be more than one piece of paper that goes between households and the county. This is true anywhere in the state. And so they keep all of them and reconcile them for the ballot board. It is not unusual to see, therefore, more than one piece of paper that says ballot by mail with the same person's name on it.
Have you been in touch with True the Vote on this?
We have. We sure have. And we talked to a couple of their ladies, and they're very supportive. Yeah, they're in Dallas, actually.
Houston.
Any other questions? Well, I want to introduce David Rogers, our attorney. The good guys. His card says that, and we are the good guys. So we're so grateful.
And we all know if the lawyer says so on his card,
Prove it, prove it.
Well, he's here.
I apologize for being a little late. I'm apparently I relied on my phone instead of on an old-fashioned map, and it sent me to the Y in Oak Hill. 290 west, not 290 east. Fortunately, the computers that we rely on for our research can test us a little longer and are a little stronger. So I expect that we're going to have some good things happen here. We've done a lot of thorough electronic research on the law, but more importantly, we've looked very carefully at the facts. Laura has done some just absolutely outstanding mathematical analysis on all of this. And the numbers are very, very, very interesting. Probably the most interesting number to me is that on mail-in ballots, they were exactly tied. I have never seen an election in all the years that I've been doing this, both as a volunteer for campaigns and as an election lawyer. I have never seen an election where it was that close in early voting, and then there were results that were this far apart on election. And I just don't believe that. Right.
I'm so grateful for David. He's represented Democrats, he's represented Republicans, Green Party across the board, and people in Travis County, people outside of Travis County.
people all the way out far West Texas worked against a